Cylinders come in different sizes, but the most common size used on lift trucks is a 33.5-pound liquid propane gas capacity cylinder. In Canada, propane cylinders are built and marked to the specifications of Transport Canada. Sometimes, markings on a container can't be seen very well because of extra labels that have been added. However, a propane cylinder should show all of the following markings: the tare weight, the water capacity, the serial number, the name of the manufacturer, the date manufactured, the test date, and the Wemyss label. Cylinders must be tested and restamped at least every 10 years, starting from the manufacturing date. This is very important. Outdated cylinders must not be used or filled. Let's look at the following components of a liquid propane cylinder. Liquid is withdrawn from the container through the liquid service valve. When used on removable cylinders, the opening of this valve is fitted with a special coupling. This coupling uses a spring-loaded check valve to allow quick connecting and disconnecting of the fuel line with a minimum release of liquid propane gas. The service valve should always remain closed when not in use. The combination of the female and male fittings, sometimes referred to as the quick connect, allows the connection and disconnection of the cylinder to the forklift engine without tools. The male connector contains a washer and an O-ring seal. The O-ring seal is located in the throat of the male connector. When it is connected to the female connector, the O-ring is the primary seal. This seal should be replaced if it has cuts or gouges. This is the liquid level gauge. This is usually a float gauge with an indicator dial. This device displays the amount of liquid in a container expressed as a percentage. However, this cannot be used to determine actual quantity as it tends to be unreliable. The liquid level float gauge cannot be used for filling. This is the filler valve. There are two types of filler valves, either a double back pressure valve or a positive shutoff valve. However, not all propane cylinders have a filler valve. Those that don't are filled through the liquid service valve. The valve protection cap must always be in place except when filling. This is the fixed liquid level gauge. This gauge indicates when the container has been filled to 80% of its capacity. This provides enough vapor space for liquid expansion. The valve is open during the filling operation. A steady fog coming from the fixed liquid level gauge or spit valve means that the permissible full position has been reached and that the filler hose should be closed immediately. This valve must always be closed except when the cylinder is being filled. And here we have the safety relief valve. This is a spring-loaded valve that releases excessive pressure that can develop in the container due to unusual conditions such as heat. The valve will automatically open when the pressure exceeds 375 pounds per square inch. This will allow the safety relief valve to work properly and only release propane vapor, not liquid. When the container is installed horizontally, the valve should always remain in the vapor space, normally the 12 o'clock position. Make sure that a protective rain or dust cap is in place. When it's time to change a cylinder, observe the following steps. Where possible, drive the equipment close to where the propane cylinders are stored. Propane cylinders must be changed where there is a good flow of fresh air. Wear a face shield or chemical splash goggles to protect your eyes and other protective equipment as required by your employer. Eliminate all sources of ignition, such as smoking, sparks, and welding. Park the truck properly with the handbrake on and close the liquid service valve. Allow the engine to run until it stops and then try to restart the motor. This will empty the fuel from the fuel lines. Turn off the ignition and remove the key. To protect your hands from the possible effects of escaping liquid propane, always wear gloves that will not absorb propane. Unfasten the quick connect coupler slowly. Inspect the valves for leaking. Do not use metal tools, as these can create sparks. There may be a brief escape of gas. If gas continues to escape after the couplings have been disconnected, recheck the valve to make sure it is closed. If it is still leaking, notify your supervisor and evacuate the area if necessary. Unlatch the cylinder mounting straps, also known as hold-down straps. Remove the empty cylinder. Store the empty cylinder properly in the assigned location. Before being used, a propane cylinder should be inspected thoroughly. Follow these procedures when checking a cylinder. Check the certification date and make sure that the liquid service valve is closed. Inspect the cylinder and move it away from the storage area. Look into the female quick connector at an angle to make sure that the washer and O-ring are in place and that they are not scarred, cut, or gouged. Keep your hands away from the service valve while doing this inspection. Make sure the ignition key is removed and continue to wear safety gloves and eye protection. Install the full cylinder on the equipment by mounting the cylinder with the pressure relief valve in the vapor space. Some types of equipment have a locating pin. On a horizontally mounted cylinder, the safety relief valve must be at the top in the 12 o'clock position. On a vertically mounted cylinder, point the safety relief valve away from the operator. Once properly aligned, strap the cylinder down to stop movement. On some cylinders, you may have to start threading the connecting coupler before you strap it down. Inspect the visible part of the fuel line for cuts, scrapes, kinks, and leaks. Tighten the coupler by hand. Do not over-tighten, as this can damage the seals. Do not use tools to tighten. Slowly open the liquid service valve 1/4 of a turn to allow the pressure to equalize between the cylinder and the fuel line. Then, open it all the way. Look, listen, and smell for leaks while opening. Use an approved leak detector solution to determine if any leaks are present. If the valve leaks, repeat the connecting procedures. If this fails, replace the cylinder and report this immediately to your supervisor. Any sign of the formation of bubbles means that you should take the cylinder out of service. Close and lock the propane storage cage. Ensure that the hose doesn't stick out and is positioned properly. Ensure that the cylinder is fastened securely. Now you may start the engine. If the engine starts but will not accelerate or loses power, the excess flow valve inside the service valve may have closed. Shut off the engine. Close the service valve. Wait until it has time to air out and then reopen the valve handle slowly, allowing the pressure inside the cylinder and the line to equalize. If you continue to have difficulties, contact your supervisor. Keep in mind that cylinders with defective valves or couplings should be taken out of service immediately. Remove the cylinder and label it properly with a defective cylinder tag. On the tag, indicate the nature of the defect and notify your supervisor. Leaking or defective cylinders should be stored in a designated, well-ventilated area outdoors away from possible ignition sources. The warning tag should be attached to the cylinder collar, making it visible to anyone who may not realize the cylinder is defective, thus preventing its use. Proper cylinder handling procedures must not be overlooked. Your safety and the safety of those around you depends on it. When it's time to recharge the battery, park the lift truck with the emergency brake on. It is best to recharge the battery when it's out of the truck. But if that's not possible, fully open the battery compartment to allow heat and hydrogen gas to escape. Hydrogen is a highly flammable gas, and for this reason, batteries must only be charged in well-ventilated areas.
No smoking or open flames are permitted. Unplug the battery connector from the truck and attach the charger connector to the battery, never to the truck. Check the cables for wear and the connectors for damage. Turn on the charger following the manufacturer's instructions. When the charging process is complete, always turn the charger off before unplugging the connectors. In March of 1995, a newly trained operator was testing the electrolyte with a hydrometer. He was not wearing any face protection. He squeezed the hydrometer too hard. This caused the electrolyte to spray up on his face. He immediately went to an eye wash station. Luckily, he was trained on what to do if he came in contact with acid and suffered no injuries. You should always wear protective equipment when you're anywhere near battery acid. Gloves, goggles, and a body shield are mandatory. Have an eye wash station nearby. If acid gets into your eyes, go immediately to the eye wash station and run water over the affected area. Then, get medical attention. After charging, remove the caps of 3 or 4 cells to determine the electrolyte level. Only a flashlight can be used to look into the cells. When the battery is fully charged, the electrolyte has a high acid content. This can be tested with a hydrometer. By testing a small sample of electrolyte, you can determine how much energy is in a cell. This will also locate bad cells in a battery. A full reading should be around 1.280. As the battery is discharged, the acid level becomes weaker. A discharged battery will read approximately 1.1620 on the hydrometer. Take hydrometer readings of the cells and record the findings. Look for large differences between cells and report any unusual findings. To avoid acid spills, only add water after charging. Adding too much water before charging will cause overflow during charging and create a hazardous spill. If electrolyte does escape, it must be neutralized with baking soda and water. Many people use a crane to remove the battery from a lift truck for maintenance. Carefully attach an approved insulated lifting beam to the battery and lift it out. Place it near the charger, then pick up the freshly charged battery. Be careful, the battery weighs thousands of pounds and can crush your hands or feet. Use only equipment designed for this purpose. Electric trucks depend on the battery to balance their loads. Use a battery that is the proper weight and voltage. Check the lift truck's nameplate and compare it with the battery's weight and voltage as marked on the battery casing. Join the connectors and close the cover. Some trucks use battery slides. Remove the safety gate and roll the battery out of the truck. In order to align the fresh battery to the battery compartment, connect extension cables. Then, drive the truck into position. Remove the extension cables and roll the fresh battery into the truck. Replace the safety gate and then connect the battery cables.